All right, Donna, here we go. You're the host now.
Okay, thank you. Why is it that it doesn't change from speaker back to me then? Why are you speaker?
Can you make me co-host?
Yeah. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi,
Welcome.
Deb. Thank you.
Yvonne, have you been to some of my classes before?
Uh, I don't think so.
Okay, I thought you were a new face to me, so I'm glad that you've come today. Thank you.
Did you do the one on the sauces?
No, that was Pilar.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I did that. Hey, Karen.
Thank
Hi, Deb. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
And Karen, you've been to some classes, haven't you?
No, I've never been to any of your classes.
Oh, I could have
This is
sworn
my
I
first
saw.
time.
Well, good. I'm glad to have some new folks here. And I also am really glad to have some of my regulars back. Hi, Michelle. Hey, Karen. Hello.
Since class hasn't officially started,
Mhm.
could I ask a gardening question real quick?
Sure.
You mentioned you're an organic gardener.
Uh-huh.
I'm not, but I've started some seeds and they've left the nursery and now they're into the toddler room, which is the bigger pot. And I have to go away for about a week.
Mm.
Do you think it would be better? It's warm, to put them in the garage that has 4 lights. I mean, I have the windows on the doors, and I have 4 other windows in the garage, and I was going to put them on top of a box, or put them up against the house, in where they'd be shaded all the time.
How are they getting water?
I'm going to water them before I leave, and I'm hoping that'll last them. I'm putting them in my old coffee cups from the fast food places.
A week's a long time for them to go without water. So you might think about how you can maybe get somebody over to give them a shot of water in the middle of the week or something, or even just check on them. But I think that if you're in a warm area and they've been hardened off, so you should have, when you say warm, you're above what?
We've been above 50 at night for about a week, and it varies. Could be 60 to 80 during the day.
Yeah, I think as long as you don't, if your temperatures at night don't go below 50, you're probably okay keeping them outside, except if you have air. If it's arid or windy, they'll dry out faster. So
Okay.
keeping them inside might help retain some of the water. You might even be able to sit them in a little bit of, even in a bottom, like I use those spinach containers and put a little water in them and then let them take water from the bottom. That could give you a little extra time if you don't have someone who will water them.
Okay, thanks for giving me your time and your opinion.
Absolutely. And now I've had a chance to get some other folks in here, so that's nice. Hey, Shirley, hello. Hi, Sharon. Sandra, hello.
Hello, I love a lemon meringue pie. That's my favorite.
Say that again about lemon meringue.
I love lemon meringue pie. Yes.
Okay. Well, we're going to, I was going to do this class on lemon meringue pie only. And then I decided to take a step back and encompass meringue in general. And I'm kind of glad I did, because it leads us into some other things that we can have later classes about. And I'm pretty excited about that. And I've also learned a lot about meringue. So I want to tell you up front, I'm no expert on meringue, but I will teach you what I have learned so far, and we will learn more together. And I'm going to share my screen now so we can go ahead and get started. And now you should see my slide, whoops, which I don't have presentation mode here. So let me get to that. Do you see making meringue there
Sure do.
on the slide? Excellent. Okay. So again, let me just ask, I know some of you have already told me this is your first time with me. I know Karen and Yvonne are new. Who else is new with me? Anybody? Okay.
Me too, I think.
Okay, Shirley. Well, I'm really happy to have you. I like to acknowledge all the first timers with me, because I hope this will be the first of many that you take my classes. And I want to introduce you to the rest of the group here who has been coming to a lot of my classes. And it's like old home week when we get together. So we have a very informal gathering here, and I like it that way. So I like having the conversations. And there's Joanne. Hi, Joanne. So my name's Deb Livingston, and I am your guide. I live in York, Pennsylvania, where I had been most of my career an organizational learning and development person. So I did a lot of training and coaching and leadership development. And now I get to translate those skills into doing something I really enjoy, and which is food. So I'm happy that you're here, and I can share what I know about food. And as you heard from, if you were here, my conversation with Michelle, I'm also into organic gardening. So I don't mind talking about that from time to time, and it comes into my classes sometimes. So you know that Get Set Up is a place where you can really learn some wonderful things. And I think that, have all of you been to Get Set Up classes at this point? Maybe just not to my classes. Is anybody a first timer? Okay. So ideally, we're participating just like we're about to here. You're on camera and we can see each other, and your microphones are on when you're speaking. Just mute them when you're not, so we keep the background noise out. And we are recording the session, so you can request that at help@getsetup.io. And we are live streaming this. So on the website, on the left-hand side of the website, you can see a little TV on the left. And if you click on that, you can see classes by live stream. But we want to say hi to people that are here from live stream and invite you to come and join, register for a class and be part of a group like this. We have a lot of fun. Lastly, I want to just comment that we do not have any kind of financial relationship with any products or services that we might represent, neither Get Set Up nor I. And I want to just remind you, so in case you get to some information that you're writing down fast and furiously, when it comes to recipes, at least, I am going to send you the recipes. And this class has some other technical information. I'll send you a few links on the technical information. So if you're kind of geeky about the science behind some food like I am, you might want to delve into that a little bit. If not, you do not have to. And you'll get with that also an opportunity to send an email to a friend if you think they might enjoy this class. You get an opportunity to give me some feedback, actually give the company some feedback about this class and anything you'd like to see additional, not just with this class, but others. And you can also go right from here to our schedule where you can book a class. And when you do book a class, you can also have another opportunity to invite friends, which I like to say, I always suggest this. I know those of you who come here to see my classes a lot probably get tired of me saying this, but I like to say this is a great place to have a reunion with friends who have similar interests and whom you can't see because of the pandemic or distance or whatever. So invite them to come. It helps you, it helps us, and it's just a fun thing to do as we build our community. Lastly, I just want to let you know about a couple classes. Sometimes when you come in to Get Set Up, you kind of lock in to types of classes that you like. So I like to point out some other ones that you might not have thought about. We're having a Get Moving with Qigong tomorrow. It's like a martial arts, but it's a very gentle, very neat form of movement. And that's at 2:00 Pacific Standard Time, which would be 5:00 Eastern Time. And people who love to crochet are getting together at 3:00 Pacific Time tomorrow. So those are some other things. Is anybody into any of that? Think they might try something different? Okay. So here's our agenda for the day. And I have to just take a moment and say my eyes are being drawn to my outside. The birds, I have glass in my transit, and the birds are just gathering out there. I think they must be building a nest. I have to go check after this class. Okay, so anyway, this is our agenda for today. I want to talk about what is meringue. You probably know, but we'll start from the basics and then talk about the different types of meringue and how they're used. So raise your hand if you knew that there was more than one type of meringue. No. Hey, me either. So we're going to learn this together, and we'll learn how they're used as well. So now when at the end of this class you decide to make meringue, you'll know which one to make for the purpose that you're using it for. And then we'll look at those ways to make it and how to make an easy meringue. I want to also say, I meant to change this. We're going to talk a little bit about the science of meringue. Exactly why does it do what it does when it's just a few simple ingredients? So I'm kind of curious to know what it is that you want to learn today. Why did you come to a class about meringue?
I just love meringue pie.
You love meringue pie. And is it lemon meringue pie mostly? Or different types?
No, lemon.
Lemon meringue. Okay.
Yeah, I used to make it, but I think it's called experience. I went to make one a while ago and it didn't work out.
Oh, yeah.
Practice.
Practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get a refresher on the meringue. Is that the part that didn't work out?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get some tips on that. And maybe you'll be able to diagnose what happened with your meringue after we get through some of these tips.
Hi, it's Yvonne. I'd like
Yes.
to know about Pavlova.
Pavlova. You know what? Thank you for saying that, because I think we're going to do a whole session on Pavlova.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, you know, Pavlova is the favorite dessert of Australians.
Right.
So it's you're not from Australia, are you?
No, I've been there several times.
Okay, so Pavlova, you're right, is a very good dessert and something we don't necessarily see a whole lot of here. So we do want to get into it. And so stay tuned. Stay tuned on that.
I didn't realize until a few years ago that having the egg whites at room temperature made such a big difference. And that I learned. I've been cooking 60 years and baking, and like I said, just watching chefs on TV that I learned that. So
yeah, you know,
I always something to learn.
Yeah, I only ever had the recipes handed down to me for this, and none of them ever mentioned having those at room temperature. Maybe they didn't, or maybe, Alberta, I just thought about this. Maybe back in the day, long ago, they didn't wash eggs. They didn't wash them or maybe wipe them off till they used them. And eggs have a natural protectant on them. They do not need to be refrigerated until they're clean. Did you know that?
That's
So
true.
They may have naturally had room temperature eggs when I think about it. Could that be? I don't know. Just something to think about.
One thing too, Deb, did you know that in your baking and your cooking, if you live lower altitude, no, it's higher altitude because I'm high. If you're in a higher altitude, you have to add about a cup, no, not a cup. What am I saying? A tablespoon of flour to your cakes and your breads. And I've told too, if you bake on a day that it's snowing, you get better baking.
How about that? That just
It
in the
rises higher. Yeah.
At higher altitude, you also use 3 tablespoons of sugar less per cup. In any cake, especially that I make, I use less sugar, a little less leavening, baking soda or baking powder or things. And cookies need a little bit more flour, and your oven temperature sometimes needs to be increased for baking, decreased if you're deep fat frying, all kinds of rules. So your best bet if you're at high altitude is to go to a county extension agent and ask them to send you the information and know what altitude you are, which now with
Maybe
iPhone.
that's a class in its own, Deb.
Yeah, hey, that's great information. That is really great information, and I will make note of that. That's really an important thing. I hadn't thought about it because I've always been on the East Coast. I've read that already, but I've never had to practically use it. So
Yeah.
good points. Anybody?
Alberta, are you in Alberta?
No, my name is Alberta.
Your name is Alberta. Okay, I'm in Alberta. I'm in
Oh my goodness.
Alberta, Canada.
I love it. It's gorgeous country up there. I'd like to visit again if you Canadians would let us in.
Yeah.
Someday. Okay, so who else besides Shirley has made meringue? Anybody ever made?
I have.
In Alberta.
I've made it.
Sandra, you have? Yeah. Have you?
Yeah.
How have you used it?
Well, I made a lemon meringue pie. And then I made an Italian meringue buttercream. I don't know. So it's kind of like, the buttercream icing, but it was meringue. So those are the only two
Okay.
that I've tried. But I'd like to do the Pavlova also.
Okay. Yeah, good. So the Pavlova, this is exciting. I'm really thinking right now we're going to have a Pavlova cooking challenge, I think. What do you think about that? How about if we learned about making Pavlova and then we submitted the pictures of our finished creations. Could that be fun?
Sounds fun to me.
Okay, that's what we'll do.
You
I'm
could-
on it.
You could
Okay.
include a lot of meringue cookies because years ago, my kids love meringue cookies because there's so much sugar, I didn't make them too often for them. But now they add so many different things to meringue cookies. It'd be kind of fun to do some meringue cookies with nuts and chocolate and different flavorings and things. So
Okay.
that'd be fun.
I'll put that on the list too. Great. We can do a whole series of just cooking with meringue if you're interested in that. I love it. Anyone else want to share an experience with meringue before we go on? Okay. So, well, what is meringue? Very simply, I mean, it is a simple food and it is simple to make if you know some of the guidelines. It is simply a sweet foam that's made from egg whites and sugar. There's one other ingredient that we throw in there, and that's cream of tartar or an acid of some sort. But other than that, it's a fairly simple food, even though it looks very beautiful. And, I was going to make meringue on camera today, but it takes so long to beat and the mixer is loud, and I didn't think you'd want to sit through all of that. So I just made it ahead of time. And here are the types that are. There's the French meringue. This might be the one that you're most familiar with. It's the most basic. It's called ordinary meringue. And it is one where you beat it to a soft peak and then you add the sugar to it. So the way that we use French meringue is to pipe it into cookies like Alberta was talking about. And as a matter of fact, I experimented. And there's one of my meringue cookies. And when I break it, it snaps, it's crispy, it's very light, and it needs to be kept in an airtight container or it will rapidly absorb moisture from the atmosphere and will get chewy. So you want the snappy, crispy. And sugar has a lot to do with that. So this is the kind of meringue that you might pipe into cookies or different forms. It also can get folded into batters like souffle batters and so on, and can be used. Now, actually, I use this as a topping for my lemon meringue pie. Does anybody else use this kind of meringue, the basic meringue where you just whip it into peaks, add sugar, and you're done? Do you use that to top your lemon meringue?
I also make a butterscotch pie, which happens to be Wayne's very favorite pie. And it has meringue topping. So,
That sounds good. Is this the kind of meringue you use? Is this the process?
right. Just
Okay.
with the cream of tartar and the sugar. That's all.
Okay. So just a little bit about that. I want to just, and I don't have all this memorized, so I'm going to go by some notes that I have to share with you what I've learned. So it is the most basic of the three that we're going to talk about, the three being French, Italian, as Sandra was referring to, and Swiss. So I'm going to go through each one of them. This is the least stable of them all, at least until it's baked. So you do, as I mentioned, beat until they coagulate, the egg whites start to form some soft peaks, and then you start to incorporate sugar very, very slowly and keep beating and beating and beating until you get a really soft, airy, and light kind of meringue it says stands at attention when you lift up your beater, so you can get some peaks. And so it can be used to make shells, make the Pavlova that we were talking about earlier. There are some other cake layers that use it, and it's often folded into batters for, as I mentioned, souffles, but also ladyfingers and sponge cakes, and then baked within those batters. So that's the way that French meringue is typically used. Notice it doesn't say as a topping for pies. So that's the one that was news to me, because this is the one that I've always used. So we are also I'm going to use that today actually to top, because I think it's fine. So I'll be using it and I'll show you how, and it's a recipe that you can recreate on your own, and you may like, especially if you like lemon meringue pie. So, and then there's the Swiss type of meringue. And the Swiss meringue is kind of the second most stable. The Italian meringue is definitely the most stable of the three. So in this case, Swiss meringue is made by beating egg whites and sugar in a pan that's on a double boiler. So it's not in the boiling water, it's in a pan above the boiling water, and you're heating it, and you're beating the egg whites and the sugar until it reaches 120 to 130 degrees. And once it reaches 120 to 130 degrees, which you can measure with a candy thermometer, you take it off the stove and you start beating it really very vigorously. And then that gives you the full volume. And then you just lower the speed and just keep beating it until the meringue is completely cool and really stiff. So this meringue is smoother and silkier and a little bit denser than the French meringue. And it is often used as a basis for buttercream frosting. So it gets turned into other ingredients that will create a buttercream. It creates less volume than the French meringue because you add the sugar very early on. And we're going to get into this a little bit when we talk about the science of meringue. How much sugar you use and when you put it in matters. So I've seen recipes that are anywhere from 4 tablespoons of sugar to 16 tablespoons of sugar for the same amount of other, and that is going to give you a different quality of product, okay? And used for different things. So think about this. If you're making something with a meringue that has more sugar, you may be folding it into something that it does not have as much sugar in, or doesn't have any sugar in it for that matter. So the last type that we'll talk about is what Sandra was referring to, Italian meringue. And this is when we start to drizzle. This is the most stable of all. We drizzle sugar that has sugar syrup that has been heated to 240 degrees into the egg whites, which have already been whipped. When you whip egg whites with nothing else in them, you can whip them to a soft peak. When it reaches the soft peak stage, then you start adding your sugar syrup in there and you whip it until it becomes firm. Gets real satiny looking and very stiff. And then that is used to frost cakes all by itself or turned into a buttercream. And Sandra, did you turn yours into a buttercream at that point? Did you mix it with other ingredients?
Yeah, I did. I'm usually making the buttercream frosting. I've done the Swiss also, but I've done the Italian more because that one, they're both really temperamental, but I can do the Italian quicker, easier than the Swiss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're both really temperamental. I've messed up more than my share of trying to make both of them. So
Okay, it sounds like we all need to practice those. Maybe that's something we can do and come back and do a best practices on and see what was successful. Yeah, I have not made either of these two, so that's on my list to do. And you can use this very easily to top pies as well. And again, it's a little, you'll get stiffer peaks perhaps. And you can use it to lighten ice cream or sorbets, mousses, that kind of thing. You can fold it into a mousse. So 3 different kinds of meringue. Who knew? Let's talk a little bit about the science of meringue. And have you ever heard these words? Hydrophilic, hydrophobic. So basically what it means is that in an egg white, there are a couple different types of amino acids. One type of amino acid doesn't like to be in water, and the other type likes to be in water. So when you start whipping an egg white into foam, air bubbles get created. And the protein or the amino acid molecules, protein molecules that don't like the water, hitch a ride on the air bubbles trying to escape. And the other ones stay in the water. So this starts to create a form out of the egg whites with these bubbles. But then we need to have something to stabilize the structure of these meringues. And that's what sugar's job is. The sugar creates structure. Okay. And cream of tartar adds to that by helping to create peaks, more peaks. But you can also see meringues that are made without cream of tartar. So I wanted to show you a little video. Let's hope that I don't have too many commercials here. Sometimes YouTube. Oh no, this is not the video. This is basically the details in case I forgot. But there's the hydrophobic is water fearing, hydrophilic is water loving. And I was going to spend a little time on that, but I think I did okay and probably didn't over science you too much. So some finer points about the science of meringue here is that the sugar provides the stability and the crispness. And as I mentioned, 4 to 16 tablespoons, those recipes can vary. So don't be surprised if you see that in your cookbooks. Cream of tartar is an acid, so is lemon juice, provides stability and peaks. And you can substitute lemon juice for cream of tartar by doubling the amount. So usually about 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar is used for 3 egg whites, and you can substitute 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice. And let's talk about how to master a meringue here. And I'm turning on my oven right now because I actually want to demonstrate this recipe.
Deb, could you repeat the substitute?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Could you repeat the substituting the lemon juice?
I sure can. It's 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice for 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was for how many egg whites?
That's for 3.
Okay, thank you.
And I will send you recipe. So you'll
Okay.
have that for a basic recipe. Now, I have one of those deep dish pie pans that you have. I should show it to you at some point here, but I sometimes double my recipe, and then I have double the egg whites too. So I get this huge, I can make this huge, mountainous, beautiful pie that is really pretty much a showstopper when I take it somewhere. It's really pretty. So that's that. And give me 1 second here. Here are a couple of tips. I know this is hard to read, so I'm going to just read it to you. These are some things that you want to keep in mind, that when you are making a meringue, you want to use a big bowl. So it should be able to hold 8 times the volume of what you're putting in there. So big bowl. Second thing about your bowl is that it must be squeaky clean. And don't use plastic. Use glass or stainless steel. Now, why is that? Well, meringue is temperamental in that if you have even the slightest bit of oil in it, and that could mean a drop of egg yolk, because egg yolk has fat in it, it will not peak, it will not whip. So plastic tends to, as much as you or we clean our plastic bowls, tends to hold on to oils. And even that slight little bit of oil can throw off your meringue. So glass or stainless steel, clean, dry, no oils. And as Alberta was saying, room temperature egg whites. An hour is a good amount of time. And here's another tip so that you don't waste eggs or end up having to make a lot of quiches or a lot of omelets. Break your eggs and separate them one at a time. So get 2 bowls out and put 1 egg in, separate 1 egg and pour the white into a bigger bowl. Put your yolk into another bowl and then go on to the next egg. And please don't use the yolk bowl for the egg white because of that fat thing. So actually you have 3 bowls. You have 1 to crack your egg into and retain the white, 1 to put the yolk into, and a third to then dump that egg white in and start with the next one. Is that how you do it? Have you done this before in separating eggs? Yeah. This is where you get into trouble if you just slam dunk it, because you could get 3 eggs in, your third egg, you break the yolk and you get a little speck of yolk in there and you've spoiled your meringue. So that's an important tip. Now, I'm just kind of curious as to the technique that you use to separate your eggs. What is your technique?
Well,
Shell to
sometimes
shell.
Try again. Okay, Sandra, go first.
Sometimes I just, put it between my fingers, put the, drop it in my fingers and let the white drip in my, through my fingers
Okay,
in the
so
bowl.
your hand like this.
Yeah, yeah,
And just let it cup it in there. You crack it with one hand and then,
yeah.
okay, wow, that's fancy. Oh boy.
It's just a lot of practice. A lot of practice. I like to make cakes.
Okay. Who has a different technique?
Well, there is a kitchen gadget, but I don't own one. I just take and go from shell to shell. I crack it and then pretend I'm mixing a drink.
Who else does that?
I do.
Yeah.
When I can't find my egg separator, I do what she just did. Go back and forth, making sure I don't get that yolk though.
Exactly. So you have an egg separator. Anybody else have an egg separator? No, I don't have one either.
I have one. I have a couple of them.
Oh, a couple of them. You are the baker.
Well, I have them because then I can't find one. Then I go and get another one and then I put that up. So it's just, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And sometimes they don't always work right. Those egg separators, for some reason, sometimes the yolk slips on it through there as well.
Oh, uh-oh.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes it's like a tip of it can like snip the egg yolk. and then that drop slides through.
Oh, so if it's not completely smooth around those edges in
Yeah.
some way, it could snag the egg yolk. So
Yeah.
you have a high quality one.
Yeah, yeah,
And, maybe the materials matter a good bit because
yeah.
plastic can be sharp, especially. Okay. So the other, let's see, what are the other tips here? Beat until the peaks are stiff and glossy, of course. And the really important one here is to add sugar by the tablespoon or add it by very small quantities. Now, you've seen different types of sugar used for meringue. You might have learned that you can use superfine sugar. You can use castor sugar. You can use granulated sugar, or you can use powdered sugar. So what's best? You know? Or why would one be better than another?
Well, question, can you use any of the sugar substitutes?
No.
No, okay.
No, not really. You can look online and see where people have experimented with that. And what you get is it's not that you can't do it. You're not going to get the same quality of meringue. And it has to do with that chemical process that we talked about and what sugar does to uphold that meringue. Now, as we go on looking at different kinds of sugar, like I've shown you allulose, which is a prebiotic fiber, and it's a type of sugar. Would that make a better meringue? That's all for testing. You know, as these things come out and these blends come out, they may have better properties and perhaps they will make a better meringue at some point. So when it comes to making meringue right now, I'm sticking with sugar. Now, I have made it with granulated sugar. And frequently I do because that's what I have. But what would be one thing that could go wrong with granulated sugar?
It gets grainy.
Grainy.
Yeah, so it doesn't dissolve completely. And not only does it feel grainy, but it also results in more water coming out of the meringue then, if
Yeah.
it's not completely dissolved. So what you have to be very careful of, and why you add it by the tablespoon, is that you want that to dissolve. You don't want to overwhelm the meringue as you're making it. You want it to dissolve. So you put a tablespoon in, you beat it for about 20 seconds before you add the next tablespoon. And you can get in there with your clean fingers and feel it. And if there is grain in there now, keep beating because it's got to dissolve. Which is why you might want to use superfine or castor sugar. Those are both finer sugars. And so they will melt into and dissolve into the meringue much more quickly, as will powdered or confectioner sugar, which is what I use today for this. I just used confectioner sugar. So is that square with what you know, Carol Sue? Because I know you talked about castor sugar already.
Yes, it does. It
Okay.
does.
Okay.
The thing is, when my mother used to make it, but I never said a word, her meringue, okay, would start weeping. And I didn't like it like that. So, but I ate it anyhow. But yeah, her meringue used to weep.
So how did you overcome that, Carol Sue? Because that is a common issue with meringue.
I don't take and make lemon meringue pies. I take and make those little meringue cookies that bake at like 250 in the oven. So I don't make meringue pies anymore, so I couldn't help it. But as I said, what turned me off was, but I said nothing. It was always good because I always liked the filling in the crust. But she used to make it with lard. But the tops used to weep all the time. So.
Anybody have any observations or comments about that and the weeping of the meringue? Anybody want to say anything about that? Alberta, you've had experience. What about that?
Yeah, that's why I try to use confectioner sugar. But
Okay.
I understand that has some cornstarch in it, which would,
Wow.
I don't know. I never looked at the package really to see if that's added, but
Let me just look. I have to pass the package. Check it. Well, my whites beat pretty well. So let's see.
mine always did too. I use granulated sugar,
You're
but
right.
apparently
It has cornstarch. You're right. I'll be
And
darned.
the other thing also, that if you have allergies like I take and do, I'm allergic to coconut oil. And the thing is many of the packages, even for cornstarch, take and say, it was run through the line near a plant that processes coconut oil. So please make sure you read your labels.
Very good point. Excellent point. And I'm so grateful to know that about confectioner sugar, because I always thought that, well, I guess you can still do this. You can make your own confectioner sugar from granulated sugar by whirring it in your food processor. So that's another alternative. You can get at least a superfine sugar. Excuse me, I'm moving the rack down in my oven because I want to put my meringues under the broiler, and I think the rack could be a little too hot. Well, I'm not sure. Let me test. Yes. If I would have known I'd be teaching cooking classes 20 some years ago, I wouldn't have put my oven underneath where my computer would be sitting. Okay, so what else can we say about sugar right now? Anything that anyone would add? So it matters how much, and it matters when. So a meringue where it's added earlier on will interfere with the formation of those walls of protein. That's what it does, and that's why it's not as stable. But when you add it later on, it gets stiffer and more stable. So I hope these are some tips and some ideas that as you're making it, you can start to observe what's going on with your meringue. So here's what I did, because, we were talking about weeping, and that is just something that happens with meringue. They do break down. They're not intended, except for the baked ones. They just don't really last when they're fresh like that. It doesn't matter what type that you get. So I made a note in my cookbook, actually, that when I make lemon meringue pies to take anywhere, I make the meringue the day of the event. And I know that if I bring that lemon meringue pie home, it's going to weep, and there's nothing I can do about it. So, except I did something different this year. I learned that my family doesn't really like lemon meringue pie that much, my brothers and their families. So I know it's also my husband's favorite thing, but we didn't need a whole pie at home. So I decided to take these little lemon meringue cups. And what I did was I made a graham cracker crust. It has just graham crackers in it, a little sugar, and some butter. And I'm going to send you the recipe for this. And you can do this two ways. This picture shows the graham crackers on top. I put mine on the bottom as a true crust. So I'll make one of each. Make one each way. And I just made this lemon curd. You should have seen me scrambling around to be ready for the class by the time you all came. And if my husband weren't here, I don't think I could have done it, because he was doing some stirring for me. So I've got my lemon custard here. It's really nice that the recipe conveniently uses 3 egg yolks for the custard and 3 egg whites for the meringue. So I'm just going to spoon that in there.
Deb, I don't know where you got your little cups, but if people are looking for those votive candle holders that you can get at the hobby shops, make a great little individual dessert cup.
Awesome idea. Yes.
We bought them in packages. I think they come 16 or 22 a package. And my friend and I each have several packages of them, because then when we're cooking for an event, they look so elegant.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
At the dollar store, you get the little 3-inch tiny spoons that fit in perfectly.
Great idea. And they're a nice, same size or serving size for a dessert.
Right.
Yeah, I like that idea. And I've also seen that I've also seen that you can use shot glasses or little shooter glasses. So those are variations on that theme. And the way that go ahead.
This is just a cheap version.
Sure, absolutely.
Buy the votive cups in those packages of them.
I love it. And you know what? I have to say though, this was really a cheap version because what happened was one evening my friend brought dessert that she just got at Costco. They come in these kind of things in a 6-pack plastic carrying case, you know, and you just bring the whole thing. It had 6 of them in, and she was going to throw them away. And I said, "Oh, I'll keep those." So can you see my glasses? Can you see everything well right now? Okay, great. So I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to add this pretty close to the top here.
Deb,
Yes.
with the exception of the meringue, could you make these few days ahead of time
Yes.
and put saran wrap over the top?
Well, yes, you could. Yes, you absolutely could. Yep.
All right. I was thinking the saran wrap so it doesn't pick up any fridge odors.
Right. Yep, for sure. So now I've done one with the crumbs on the bottom and one with the crumbs on the top. And now I'm going to lay my meringue on top of that. See how that goes. Now, this is the part that takes a little bit of finesse because you kind of want to, now that mine's been sitting here for a little while, and I also had it beat pretty stiffly. So you wanted to be able to peek them up, and this could look a little bit better, but not bad. It's not standing as nice as I might like it, but maybe if I played with it a little bit more. I think it might have been a little different had I put it on right after I made it. Just dab that around a little bit. Stirring it around a little bit and breaking that down just a little. See what happens. Okay, you have to be really careful with this because it drags up those crumbs when you put them on the top. I don't think I like that as well. I'm too in a hurry to be so finessed with it. So okay, so we're going to pop these into the oven now, just a little bit on broil. And that's, I'm not even going to say anything to Alexa because it's not even going to take that long. For those of you who haven't been here before, I talk to Alexa regularly when I'm in the kitchen. She reminds me when my time is up. She helps me convert measurements as well. So that's always really helpful. And the last thing I'll show you, since we have a little bit of time, I wasn't expecting to do this, but if I can find so I have a KitchenAid. I have a KitchenAid piping tool that has various tips. Whoa, wait a minute.
I was going to say you're brave for walking away because that's always what I do, and then I burn.
I shouldn't have done that. I got distracted and got a good idea going here. So they got a tad brown, but pretty nice. They look pretty good, huh? And they do cover and seal in the, can you see it okay? They cover it and seal in the lemon very nicely. And I don't think you'd have that weeping. I didn't have that for some hours later. I even had those out and took them, was going to take them home and put them in the refrigerator after Easter. And I stopped by a friend's house and she said, oh, they sound really good. And she said, can I have one? So I just left them with her because they look great.
They
So-
would really take and look good with a little, taking one of those the parasols taken on it for a outside party.
Oh, yeah, they would. Yes, they would. Yep.
For a barbecue.
So you were able to just put regular glass, not tempered glass or whatever the special kind is, in the oven?
Yeah, it was just in there for so briefly. So I did
Okay.
experiment with that first, but yes, I was able to do that because you just had the broiler on and it didn't even have to be in as long as it was. And I want to say to you, since you brought it up about making the other ingredients ahead, actually, I would prefer it that way if I was going to be serving it because now, because it's what I did as well. I put them together and then the day of was when I made the meringue and put that on. And then this part was still chilled. So when I put this in the refrigerator, that meringue is going to start to weep. So now what I'm going to have here is a warm lemon custard, and I would prefer to have it chilled, but I did it for the class, so we're good. It's all good.
Oh, good
But
tip.
that's what I would do, is chill that ahead of time. Okay, so what do we want to talk about with these recipes at this point? I'm kind of at the end of the presentation for the day. So I'm luxuriously have enough time to talk. Everybody who's been here before knows that I run up to the minute. So we're in good shape right now.
I have a question on, the little kiss cookies, the meringue cookies. How long and what temperature would you cook those? Because I tried it once and they'd been in the oven for a while, but they were still real kind of sticky.
I know exactly what you mean. And here's what I did. So I used this little gadget and I, I had to look at a YouTube video to really see what I should be doing, because what I do is try to fill it up like this when it was all folded out. Did anybody else ever do this before? So do you have one of these? Try to put it in, it's all messy. And then I'm trying to squeeze it down and it's squeezing out of the top. Then I learned that what has to happen is that you fold it down. And then you put your egg white in here. Then you fold it up and you can twist it off at the top and start to pipe with it. And
Deb, another hint is if you'll put that bag then, for example, in a quart jar, so it kind of stands up.
Great idea. Yep.
And yeah, then it's easier to fill while it's standing. It stands
Perfect.
straight up. Yeah.
Perfect. I love that. Oh boy, well, I know what I'm going to do with the rest of my egg whites. And by the way, at this point, what I can do if I want to is I can stir some vanilla in here or a little of another kind of flavoring, and then I can flavor my cookies. I could also put a little bit of food coloring into my meringue and just swirl it around a bit. I can make it a solid color, or I can put it along the inside and make it sort of striped. But I think this is
Change your camera, Deb. You've got the summary sheet up. Could you change it to just you while you're doing this?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was going to say you can drizzle a little bit of food coloring in and mix it into your meringue for a solid coloring, or I've seen some techniques where you drizzle it on the inside of your bag and then put your egg white in, and then it comes out kind of stripy. I'm imagining there's a bit of technique to that. So that could be one of those ideas Alberta said for making cookies with different ingredients. Maybe we can include in that different colors as well and see what happens there. So
What I do when I want to make a stripe, I take a paintbrush and dip it in and then pull the paintbrush
you dip
in
it
the
in
bag.
there.
In the
Oh,
bag. In the bag. You get your paintbrush, stick it in your color, and then just kind of like draw the line in the bag.
yeah.
That's how I used to do when I would make a kid's cake and would make clowns.
Oh, nice. So
Yeah.
Sandra, will you show us that sometime? If we get back together on this, maybe, or talk us through it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Give us all right. That's all right. We'll talk more about it. Yeah.
Okay.
I love that you're sharing these ideas because these are neat.
I
And
have
you
a
asked about what do you do. Let me just answer your question here first, Sandra, and then we'll go on. But here's what I did when I baked those cookies that I just showed you. I put them in a 200-degree oven for 1 hour, and then I turned off the oven and let them in the oven overnight. So what happens is they dry as they're cooling in the warm oven. They don't dry while they're baking for that 1 hour so much. A little bit, but they dry more in that oven after.
And I think if you have a convection oven, it helps dry them even more because of the fan.
Great idea.
Yeah, I don't have that. Yeah, I don't have that. Now, is the oven door closed when it's overnight?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Closed
Thank-
and off. Yep. Mhm.
Yep.
That's
Use
it.
Use parchment paper.
Did I use parchment paper? So yes, I did use parchment paper.
Okay.
Thanks for saying that. I also used my Silpak, the silicone, one of these. And that worked okay. It didn't, I still needed to push them a little bit. They didn't stick
Okay.
by any means, but it wasn't as good as the parchment paper.
Have you experimented at all with the egg whites that come in the milk container, the refrigerated ones?
I have not. Has anyone? Have you?
Well, for this meringue that I use for on top of the pie, because we like a lot of meringue, I just add a couple tablespoons to my real egg whites, and I use a couple tablespoons of that. And I have that on hand for making omelets. I'll use a couple whole eggs and then add some of the egg whites. So I'm not using all eggs.
So you have found that when you use that in combination with actual egg whites from whole eggs, that it works just fine in the meringue.
Yeah, you have to
Okay.
shake it, but yeah, I haven't used just those, but I'll try it someday.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let us know. All right. One last share here and we will wrap things up. So you should see my slide here, just what we talked about today, different types of meringue and how they're used, the Italian, the Swiss, the French. Now we know that. And a little bit of the science of meringue. We understand how those proteins work a little bit, know about hydrophilic and hydrophobic a bit. And now you'll have an easy dessert to try. So you can give it a shot with either the French. I'm going to send you the recipe for the French, but also for the Italian. So if you want to give that one a try, you can do that. Well, you get all three actually, but one of the two to try on top of your lemon meringue. So what type are you going to give a try? Think you'll try the recipe, the lemon meringue recipe? Okay. So thanks for coming to this class. First time through it went, did it go okay? What do you think? Was it a good overview of meringue?
Yes, great class.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, how long will your curd last?
This will, I do something with it today. It's already starting to, it's not as nice as it was when I first made it. This is something that just doesn't hold up. It really, the one that's the most stable, the Italian, may last in the refrigerator if you make it the day before you're going to use it, but that's still really pushing it. All the guidelines that I've read are that you should just use it, make it the same day for best quality.
But the curd, if you're not making the meringue.
Lemon curd, I'm sorry, the lemon curd. That'll last quite some time in the refrigerator. You can
Okay.
keep it a week, maybe even more. Yeah. So I'm not going to use this. I'm going to chill this off now, and then we'll use it in individual desserts throughout the week. It's nice to have it in the refrigerator for a quick take along dessert. You can make as many as you want at a time. Okay. Well, thanks for being part of the Get Set Up community. And thanks for coming to my class. I'm doing Mexican Fiesta a little later today. Tomorrow, we're just going to get together and talk about cooking, whatever's on your mind. I usually carry over topics that people have raised from the last time so we can delve into them a little more. So if you have something you want to talk about, bring it. And we'll talk about it tomorrow and follow up on it the following week. And Friday, we're having a Kentucky Derby party. Wear your hat. If you come, wear your hat. We have a lot of fun. The last class wore their hats. And Monday, I'll be doing something on quinoa again. So same class if you've already come to it, but yeah, that'll evolve too, because there's a lot to talk about with quinoa. So we might do more with that as time goes on. So I hope to see you at another class. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Do.
Thank you, Deb.
Happy
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Wow, did pretty well on that one. I'm usually running up to the minute or I'm over max. So woohoo, got finished on time.
Yeah.
That is an accomplishment. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end. And I'll look for attendance then. Thank you very much, Max, for your help. Is there anything I
You're
missed?
welcome.
Anything I missed in the chat? No. Okay. Thank you for putting those other, what's that next class that you put in there?
Schedule for your next class.
Oh,
There is a slide.
okay.
Just took a screenshot for your slides and I shared in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.